In this video, I would like to introduce you to the Problem Solution Getting Started worksheet, which will be your homework this week. We'll look at how to do some research in the UBC library. We'll also look briefly at a corpus for getting some of our keywords. We'll do some examples, we'll narrow down our search results, and we'll start to build a draft reference. So I'm basically going to do an example with you. Just keep in mind that I've done a lot of the research outside of this video, so the video is not the same amount of time that you will need to invest in doing the research. The research is going to take at least a couple of hours, if not a little bit more, in order to really get some good draft resources going. So having said that, let's take a look at the week 14 getting started with the problem solution. So here you have a template. It's going to go step by step to help you with your assignment. So step 1 says identify a big problem that you're interested in related to your wiki. It needs to be an arts problem, something that would be researched and discussed academically. So you're going to put your problem and what disciplines you think might look at this. So we're going to do an example together in just a minute. Step 2 is going to ask you to identify some important questions. So we'll look at what some of those might look like. Step 3, you're going to identify your own thinking about the problem. So this is going to include your background knowledge, assumptions that you make, and any personal biases that you have. So you can put them in the boxes, and I'll show you an example in just a minute. Step 4, we're going to do some preliminary research. We're going to use a word and phrase corpus to help us with our keyword search terms, and then we're going to take those to the UBC library. Step 5 is going to help us narrow down, putting in some keyword search terms, some circumstances, and a discipline. Then we'll finally have our draft references at the end. Okay, let's start by looking at the example sheet that you have. Step 1, so we're identifying a big problem that I'm interested in related to my wiki. So my wiki is about social problems and homelessness. So my big problem I'm going to focus on is homelessness. I'm thinking possibly in Canada. I'm not sure what the research says, so that's just my first guess. The disciplines I'm interested in sociology, I'm interested in human geography, psychology, it may be history, maybe political science. So I'll let you put in the disciplines there. Step 2, I want to start identifying some important questions around my problem. So some important questions that I came up with, and make sure to use your own questions, not to copy any of the wording from the example. Are there certain age groups? Maybe my problem affects different age groups more than others. Are there certain populations? I'm thinking about different minority groups, which may be more affected by homelessness than others. Are there certain genders that may be more affected? Does homelessness correlate with anything? I'm wondering if there's impacts and relationships between health, mental health, age. I'm interested in some causes. Are there relationships with education, families, socioeconomic status? And then the consequences, right? What are the impacts on people? What's the cost to the government and society? I'm wondering about the legality. I don't know the legal rules around homelessness in Canada. And I'm also interested in responsibility. I'm asking questions about, whose responsibility is this to help people who are homeless? So I've just brainstormed a whole bunch of important questions here that I have about my topic, things I'm wondering about. And I'm hoping that some of these I'll be able to focus on when I go to the library and start reading some of the research. Coming down to the next page, we have step 3. So I want to start to identify my own thinking about this. So I'm not going to use my own thinking in the actual writing. So this writing is based in research. It's not based about my idea or my thoughts or my opinion. That's not what we're looking for. But it is really important before you do research to identify what you are thinking about, because your own thinking and your own biases can really affect the way that you research. So I've started here with my background knowledge. This is things that I think I know. So I think that I know that there are a lot of homeless people in the downtown east side of Vancouver. I think homelessness happens across Canada and the United States. Homelessness can really impact your health, and I think maybe it's related to things like drug use. Here are some assumptions that I have, things that I assume, but they may not be true. I assume maybe that homeless people are poor because they're too poor to afford housing, or because they don't have a family, or maybe homeless people don't have a job. Those are my assumptions. Those things may or may not be true. And then my personal biases here. This is where I really want to make sure these don't get in the way of doing good research. So I start to think, well, what are my personal biases? And it's hard to identify those and put them out there, but I think it's an important part of doing good scholarly research. So my personal biases, maybe I think that they're poor because they did something wrong, or maybe homeless people are lazy, or I think homelessness won't happen to me or anyone else that I know. I think there's always a job for someone who's willing to work hard. And so I start to look at these biases that I have myself. After that, we're going to go down into step 4. You're going to start to do some beginning research, some preliminary research, a start to the research. We're going to go do that research in the UBC library, and we're going to open an advanced search. But I'd like to make a list of keyword search terms. Remember that keywords that we use in the library, they tend to be nouns and noun groups or nominalizations. And I've put a link here to the word and phrase corpus, and that's going to help you come up with some of those noun and noun phrases and nominalizations. I want to look at all genres to start with. It's going to ask me for the word. So I'm going to type in just my big problem word, which is homelessness, and I'm going to hit search. So I can see the word over here. It gives me a definition. It tells me whether it's used in spoken English, fiction, magazines, newspapers, academic. Well, I'm interested in academic, so I'm going to click on academic. The great thing here is it gives you collocations. That means words that go with that word in English. And you can't get these from most translators. So this is a really great tool for doing research. So I want to know in English, when academics are talking about homelessness, what words do they also use? So they use words like social, chronic, literal, urban, long-term homelessness, right? We've got nouns like problem, poverty, drug, hunger, crime, abuse, unemployment. We've got verbs that go with homelessness, like to end homelessness, increasing homelessness, experiencing homelessness, causes, right? Prevent, that's a great verb for a problem solution. Maybe I can use the noun prevention as well. I can go down here and I can see examples from different academic writers, how they've used homelessness. So it gives you sort of before and after the word homelessness. So I could see homelessness and, I've got homelessness and poverty, homelessness and refugees. Maybe I'm interested in writing a problem solution about homelessness and refugees. So I can go down and I can see how the word has been used. I can sort them by clicking on different sort buttons. So I can see homelessness among individuals, among men, among veterans, among gay and lesbian teens. So now I already started asking those questions before, like, are there minority groups that homelessness would affect? And I can start to see, even just in the corpus, maybe those minority groups are gay and lesbian teens or youth, or maybe they're veterans, or maybe They are refugees. So this is starting to give me some good keywords that I can bring back into the library. So here I started to make a keyword search term list. So I've got homelessness. I've got chronic homelessness. I'm going to put it in quotation marks when I search. I've got long-term homelessness. So I'm just pulling these collocated words, these words that go together from the website, from the corpus. And I can start to do homelessness and maybe I'm interested in unemployment, poverty, age, minorities. I started to see some of those. Maybe I want to add some circumstances like time or place. I can put Canada. I put New York in quotation marks. So now I'm going to go to step 5, which is going to help me identify some other keywords that are used in articles that I found. So I'm going to go to the library, start putting in these keyword search terms. So let's do that. Okay, so here I am at the library. What I don't want to do is just start typing in this keyword box that's right on the front page. What I do want to go is to the advanced search. So this is going to open an advanced search for me. I can add as many boxes as I like. I can change the Boolean operators that you saw before, the and or not, here to help me in my search. So I'm going to start with 3 of my basic search terms that I had. So I'm going to do homelessness in the first box and I'm going to do minorities and then I'm going to do Canada. Now there's a couple of filters here that are really helpful. When doing research, I really want my research to be up to date. I do not want to be pulling articles from 10, 15, 20 years ago. So there's some publication dates here. You can have things that were just published in the last year, 3 years, or 5 years. So I'm going to start with 5 years just to see what I get. I can always make it newer. I come down here and I say, no, I only want peer-reviewed things. And I want to exclude, I don't want to see things like newspaper articles. And then I can say search. You'll see at the top, I've got 1,311 results, which is too many results. I cannot possibly look through 1,000 results. So over on the left, I've got some more filters over here that are going to help me. So I only want to see things that are full text online, things that I can see online. I want scholarly and peer-reviewed. I come down here and I say, okay, maybe I want only the last 12 months or only the last 3 years instead of 5 years. Now these results are starting to come down. Now I've got just under 800, but that's still too many. So something else that's going to help me is I can start looking by discipline. So if I say, okay, I'm interested in looking at disciplines, we've got a whole bunch of disciplines here. So I can go down and say, oh, I'm interested in economics, or I'm interested in geography. I see that there's 33 articles from geography. Maybe I'm interested in history or international relations or law. So I've got all of these here. I can go down. You can see how many there are. So let's choose geography. You could choose more than one. Maybe you're interested in geography and something else. So we could look at maybe political science, history. Maybe I'm interested in social work or sociology. So you can see how many of these articles are there. You can apply and then it will filter it down. Now I've only got 300, still a lot. So I can start playing and filtering down by discipline. Okay, so in order to get this down a little bit more, I'm going to refine. I'm going to look just at the last 12 months. And I'm only going to look at, let's look at our disciplines. I'm only going to look at, take off geography. Down, I'll take off political science. Maybe I'm interested in sociology. I see that there's 31 there. And I can say, okay, now I'm down to 31 results, which is pretty good. So I can start looking through some of the titles. So time, place, and home, exploring meanings of home in Vancouver. It's kind of a nice one. You're not alone, the use of peer support groups for fraud victims. People like us, spatialized notions of health, stigma, power. This looks to be about women in street sex work. So I can go down once I find one that I like. So for example, the second one, the potential use for urban surveillance to help support people who are homeless. That sounds like it could lead to a problem solution paper. So I can click on this. I can look at the abstract, read through. Remember, I've done a lot of this research outside this video, so you're going to need to spend some time looking through articles and abstracts. If you say, yes, this is really interesting, then remember to save it however you're saving it, either to a management system. You can download the PDF. You can put that in a folder, a research folder. So once you've done some of that research and you start looking through those keywords, you start looking through some of the articles, you'll see here in step 5, it says identify some other keywords that are used in the articles you've found so far. So use these words to refine your search. And remember, the more specific, the better. So I looked through a whole bunch of articles, and in those articles, I started seeing a pattern of homelessness, the keyword youth, the keyword sexual minority, Canada, and then I started looking through the lens of sociology. So let's go put those into the library. So we've got homelessness. We're going to change this to youth. Then we're going to add, in quotation marks, sexual minority. I can add as many boxes as I want. And we're going to look at Canada. Only want from the last 5 years. I only want things that are peer reviewed. I'm going to search. Now I've got 146 results. That's pretty good. I can narrow it down a little bit more. So I'm interested in looking at maybe sociology. So here, the very first article I see, preventing. Preventing is good. That sounds like a problem solution. Reducing and ending LGBTQ2S youth homelessness, the need for targeted strategies. That sounds like it could be really good for my problem solution. So I click on there. I can read through, I can look at the abstract, and very often when you look at abstracts, either right above or right below, there'll be keywords that this person is using, this author. So this author is using keywords like homelessness, homophobia, policy change, social inclusion. So I can take these keywords back to the library and I can start playing with that research box to see what I can get. So I decided I really like this one. I think I'm going to use this one. I'm going to download it and save it in my file. I can also start building a draft reference list. So if I go over here to this icon, it says cite this item, however you want to cite it. This is really useful for other classes too. You can cite in APA, MLA, Chicago, Harvard. So we'll just try APA. It will give me the reference. It's not formatted, but it's the reference. So I can take that into my homework and say, okay, I'm going to put that in my draft references here. So then I start looking at the research, going back and forth in the library. I ended up finding these 3 articles that I really liked. You can see that the 2 articles I found are by the same person. They're just 1 year apart. So this is a researcher who's obviously looking and publishing and researching about this topic. So I wouldn't want to just use one person's research in an article, even if I had 2, 3, maybe even 4 articles by the same person, because it's all the same perspective. So I want to make sure to include other perspectives as well. So I found this article that I liked from 2018. Can also go back to the library, start looking through. Okay, so I found this article, came up number 12 in my search. It says Queer, Young, and Homeless. That's right on my topic. A review of the literature. Oh, that sounds really good. This sounds like somebody who's looking at the literature and reporting back. So I can read the abstract here and I say, okay, yes, this is about homeless youth populations. That's what I want to write about. It's about sexual minorities. It's about queer youth. Yes, that's what I want to write about. And I can see that this person is basically doing a literature review. They're looking at different articles on this topic. So this is amazing. I definitely want to use this. So I'm going to cite this. I want to put it on my draft references. I'm going to show you how to format it. So you get a preview. So I can take this, copy it, bring it over here to my draft. And I want to make sure that they're in alphabetical order. So I'm going to put this one here. And as you can see, it doesn't look like the other ones, right? This just looks like it was cut and pasted off the library. It hasn't been formatted yet. So it'll take just a minute to format it. And I just want to look through and make sure it looks right. So I have the author's name, I have the date, I have the title. This looks like a journal, so it needs to be in italics. So just some quick formatting things. I've got volume number, issue number, I've got page number, looks good. It's in alphabetical order, A, B, C, D, E. Perfect. Okay, and then I save that as my draft resources. Now, if I were looking at this draft reference list and I would say, okay, I see references from 2016, 2017, 2018. This looks like really pretty recent research. So that's excellent. We want to make sure that we're staying pretty much in the last 5 years. Now, just as a little aside at the end of this video, for you researchers out there, I can see that this person has been researching a topic that I'm really interested in, and a quick Google search will bring me to the researcher. So I can see what kind of research that this person has been doing. They have a little paragraph on areas of research. This might even help me develop some keywords. So I can see some of the words that this researcher is using, things like marginalized populations or community engagement, using words like healthcare, homophobia, transphobia, mental health. And it is really just interesting to read through other people who are doing research that you're also interested in. This person's made a video here that I can see and listen to their voice. So I always think it's interesting in doing research when I find somebody who has done a lot of research and is very well published on something I'm interested in too.